Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to winterize a above ground pool. We're here in the Midwest, it's West Central Illinois, so we have to deal with freeze in wintertime. So we have to cover it, put the right chemicals in. So we started off with a clean pool, and now I'm going to put in 2 gallons of liquid chlorine. I'm going to pour one directly through the skimmer so it can kind of run through the sand back into the pool. And then the second gallon, I'm going to switch the pump over to recirculate and bypass the sand in the filter and just recirculate it through the pool. We're going to let that go for probably 20 minutes or so, so that gets good and circulated. And then we'll start unhooking hoses and start actually winterizing it. Anytime you readjust your filter, your pump, you want to make sure you shut it off before you rotate the valve. It can do damage if you leave it running and try to move that. So I'm going to go to recirculate to get better flow, and we'll do this gallon. I like to pour part of it right at the return. It's got a, I pour about a third of it at the return, and then I go ahead and walk around the pool and just pour it around the perimeter. So actually, I forgot a step. I did it out of order. Before the chlorine, I should have backflushed my filter so that I have clean sand for next spring when the pool gets reopened. Um, Not the end of the world, but if I do a backflush now, I'm going to lose some of the chemicals that I just put in there. So I actually did a backflush a couple of weeks ago, so we're just going to run with this. I'm not. I still had pretty good flow, so normally you would clean pool, backflush the sand, then put in your chemicals, and then start unhooking things. But so I missed on that one. So anyway, we're going to let that run for about 20 minutes and 20 to 30 minutes. Let it circulate real good in the pool, so we have good mixture. And then we'll start unhooking hoses, unhook the pump. We'll shut the power off before we unhook the pump, so we're safe. And we'll show you that here in a little bit. All right, so we've given the pump adequate time to circulate all the chemicals, and we're ready to go ahead and shut it down. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off the pump. There's two settings on this filter. There's closed, and then there's winterize. I've done both. I don't know that it necessarily matters, but in this case, I'll go ahead and put it to winterize. Okay, no, I won't. I'm going to leave it at closed because just winterized. I'm going to drain the water later. There's a drain at the bottom. So now that the pump is off, I've seen it recommended that you drain your pool down below the return line and or the skimmer. I don't like doing that because I think it's just a waste of water. I have done it the first few years we lived here, but now I have a skimmer lid that fits on really tight. It keeps the water from coming out the skimmer. And then there's a cap that closes off the return. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in now, and then we'll unhook hoses. Pull our skimmer strainer out. we should get, the only water come out of this should be from the pump or the filter. There. The skimmer is empty. You might see an occasional drip for a little while. I'll come back and double check that lid, make sure it's good and tight. And technically, we're ready to cover the pool. Well, not quite. The pool is ready. I do have an inner tube. I would recommend using some type of air pillow in the center of your pool. I've used the regular air pillows you can get from Amazon. You can get them a lot of different places. But I have an old tube float that had a mesh bottom in the center of it, and it ripped out. So I cut it out, and I flip it over because it's got 4 points that you can tie. I'll tie it to the wall. Once that's in place, then we'll put the cover on, and you'll see that process. It's especially in the Midwest where the pool is going to freeze. You're going to have a layer of ice underneath the cover. Depends on how harsh the winter is, but it's going to be, could be 2 inches thick, it could be 6 inches thick. But the pillow helps take the strain off the walls, because if you don't put anything at all, it could collapse the pool. So I would recommend you could use a tractor tire inner tube if you have access to like a tire store, or like I said, the air pillows work really well. But what I have seems to work, and so I stay with it. So we're gonna go ahead and unhook the rest of the hoses. I am gonna unhook the pump. I'm comfortable doing my own electrical. I'm not certified, so if you don't feel comfortable and you're not safe doing it, then by all means, hire somebody to do that. But this is just a non-contact tester. And I don't always, they're not foolproof. So I don't, if I have the chance, I'll put a multimeter on it because you know for sure whether something's dead or alive. But in my case, we feed the power to this pump from our house, from an outside GFCI receptacle. So I can just go trip that breaker and it will kill this line. So I'll go do that now. I have nothing. Now in this case, since this pump is still hooked up, another way to double check that, turn the pump on. Don't leave it on for very long, but well, there's still water in this one, so it wouldn't hurt, but you don't want to run your pumps very long if you don't have any water in them. So there's this little, on this timer, there's a little shield to protect the wiring. It does indicate on it what's neutral, what's your line, and what's the load. Those that may not know, line is the power coming in, load is what you're powering. In this case, it's the pump. I went ahead and wrote with a paint pen in case that card ever wears, the writing wears off of it, or if I ever break it or lose it. In fact, you can see there's a little crack in it right there from the screw. So eventually that is going to probably break. So in this case, here's my hot, and there's my neutral and the ground. I'm just going to loosen these enough to take it off. what I'm gonna, I also feed our shed off the same circuit as this. So I have to actually unhook this timer completely. Otherwise, this is going to sit out here and be wasting energy. So I go ahead and put a wire nut over the hot. I take everything inside and store it inside for the winter, except I leave the sand filter out here. I will drain the water, and then I just cover it with a trash bag. It seems to work as well as anything. So I'm not bring cutters out for. All right. Gently retighten those so you don't lose them. At least tight enough to keep them from falling off. These are stainless steel, but they seem to rust anyway. So I usually, about 2 years is about all you're going to get out of these. And they're not that expensive, so sometimes I just go ahead and put new on. In fact, I put new on this year, and then one summer, that's how much they're already trying to rust. Be safe. I'll rinse it and I'll let it sit out and dry. So this filter, the gauge for the pump, if you have winters, take that inside because that will break. Trust me on that one. I did it. And the little sight glass here, when hands are wet, it doesn't come off very easy. There we go. I've got a plug inside the house that I forgot to bring out. That'll go in that. And this is your drain for the draining the water out of the filter. Now that will drain slow, and that's okay. Or in this case, I could go ahead and move it to winterize, and that will actually let it drain. It'll take a while for it to drain out, but and when I cover this with the bag, I do not cover that, so I let that drip. It may drip for days, but it'll be completely empty by the time winter comes. So we are done with the pump part of it. One thing left to do is go ahead and get the tube put in place, tie it off in the corners, and then run the cover. Normally what I do I pull the cap off and I try to run it, well, I run it through here and try to run it back out to tie it off. Actually,
A few moments later.
I like to loosen it far enough, if you can imagine a cover being on this, so that there's not a lot of strain. The string's not putting a crease in the cover once there's, because there will be water sit on top of the cover, which you want a little bit, so it helps keep it down in the wind. But you don't want too much, so it's good to periodically drain some of the water off the cover. But I think that'll, we're not quite centered. We're probably a little too close to this side, but it's going to be good enough for what we need to do. So I think we're ready for the cover. So let's go get that. The cover can be kind of a challenge. You need at least 2 people. Now we're blessed with a day that's not too windy, not too much wind, but it's still a challenge even for 2, even with no wind. But this is a 21-foot pool, so we have a 24-foot cover so that we have a little bit of room on all sides. And if it is a little bit windy, just make sure you use the wind to your advantage. Don't try to pull the cover into the wind. Go with it. What are you doing, pup? What are you doing, pup? Speaking from experience, don't try to get one too many years out of your cover. I tried to save $100 and I spent more than that putting enough chemicals in it to get it back where it needed to be if I would have just bought a cover to start with. So 2 to 3 years on these covers is about all you're going to get out of them. So just keep that in mind if you have a pool. All right, so that went pretty uneventful. So now we just need the cable and the clamp. This here's something else that not super high quality either. So if you get a couple years out of this, you're doing good too. So my plan in the future is once this wears out, the cover's probably wore out too. When you get a new one of these, when you get a cover, so that's what we do. And I mean high quality clamp here. This is like, never done one. You just pull the line through the outside into the barrel of the crank. Do the same thing on this side. Get them both through before you try to tighten them. Now, I usually just pull the tail. You could actually come through both ends if you wanted to. I just choose to pull it like that. Get it somewhat tight. You got your lever here that, see, the spring's almost wore out of this one already. So when I go to stop, I'll have to push that lever down. Once you have tension on it, it'll stay. But don't have to get crazy tight with this. Just tight enough that it won't come loose. And then what we do is we go around the pool and we actually take the cover, and I like to fold it under. Actually, I get it. I pull it down under the cable first. And once I have the cover behind the cable, I like to push it up to the top rail, and then we're going to come back with a roll of shrink wrap, and we're going to go around the perimeter of this pool, and it makes a huge difference. First couple of years we didn't do that, and then I'm not sure where I got the thought, but I might have saw it on Facebook actually. I don't remember for sure, but it does work. Just don't buy the shrink wrap from Walmart, because that stuff is really thin, and all you're going to do is get aggravated because it keeps breaking before you can even make a revolution. So order one from Amazon. That's going to be strong enough to tie it up and make your rounds around the pool. So now generally the cable, and I didn't mean to end it that close to the post, but I generally tuck that under the tarp. It's aluminum, so it really doesn't matter. It's not going to rust. I think I'll leave it exposed this time. It's going to get wrapped with the shrink wrap anyway. So if you see this, don't waste your money. This stuff is thin, it tears real easy, and it's not good for pool covers. This one is actually Amazon, I believe. I'm right-handed, so I prefer to go this way, but obviously you can go whatever way you want. The only other thing I'll do is get out the garden hose. I'll put a little bit of water in the top. It doesn't take a lot of water on top, just enough to get some weight it down. 10-15 minutes of spraying water is probably sufficient. So really that's probably enough water. Like I said, it'll rain at some point, and then I'll keep an eye on it, and when there's too much water on it, I'll get a hose. I've got a little 12-volt pump, and I'll pump a little bit off the top, or I'll do the old school way and just siphon with the garden hose, get it started. But if you can imagine, so if you didn't have a pillow in there, and then this froze, you, now that the cover's on there, I think it demonstrates how it can take weight off the sides because you have a pillow there. If you didn't, that's another reason I leave as much water in as I do, because the more water you leave in here, even if it's ice underneath it, if it freezes, the cover can only go as low as the ice is. So that's another reason I believe that keeping your pool more full is beneficial to your walls. But if you use a pillow, you're not going to have any problems at all. So back to the shrink wrap. If you have a pool and you've never used shrink wrap around the perimeter like this, do yourself a favor. Spend $20 and get you some shrink wrap. It makes a ton of difference on how much wind gets under that cover. So, and with that, I think that's pretty much a wrap. So thanks for watching. If this video was informative, helpful, and you got something out of it, consider liking, subscribing to the channel, and hopefully we'll see you in the future.